The Particular Abilities of Marinette and Her Discovery of Them by Plants Are Fun 06, a Miraculous Ladybug, Batman, crossover fanfic. Chapter 11. Time Flies. Marinette didn't really know when it all happened. Didn't know how everything simply fell together. The past year and a half since Hawkmoth had emerged, life had truly flown by. It was probably because of how busy she was. Between Guardian training, patrol, Hashin magic training, school, on and off appearance of Mayora, doing her work at the bakery as well as volunteer work she did with her parents, friends, the Akumas, and her gymnastics practice and competitions, she really had no point in which she could simply sit down and process all that was happening and how fast everything was going. Even before bed, or riding the train home, or even in the shower, she was always thinking about the next day's plans, potential training exercises for both her and the rest of the team, or even potential leads on Hawkmoth. Not to mention her training the team in combat. Rena Rouge and Carapace were joining patrols 3 to 4 times a week now, and getting an hour and a half of training on each of those days from both her and Chat Noir, who had reached her own magically gained level of combat. Though, while she knew how to use a multitude of the weapons the Amazons used, he was only trained in the bow staff, which was really all he needed. Not to mention the 4 new heroes that were training 2 to 3 times a week, and Queen Bee, who joined patrols and trained on Saturdays. There was King Monkey, her best friend Kim, holder of the Monkey Miraculous of Derision. Max Kenty became Pegasus, holder of the Horse Miraculous of Migration. There was Luca, a boy whom Marinette had become good friends with, holder of the Snake Miraculous of Intuition. And lastly, there was Kiwami, holder of the Dragon Miraculous of Perfection. They didn't often come to battle, only when needed, and typically not more than 1 or 2 auxiliary heroes were needed in a fight, if at all. But when they were called on for battle, they were essential, not only because of the powers they were learning to wield, but because of the reason they were chosen. While Kim was chosen because of his undying loyalty and bravery, and Max because of his incredible intelligence, Luca and Kiwami were chosen for different reasons. Luca and her became incredibly close very quickly. Luca was Julika's Huafin's twin brother. He went to a magnet school for music in the city, so they hadn't met until she came over to Julika's houseboat to listen to their band. Luca was an incredibly perceptive person, and Marinette suspected that he knew something was off about her. Ever since they first met, she had really felt that, knowing him as well as she did. Now she wouldn't have been surprised if he knew she wasn't completely blind, like everyone thought she was. While he wouldn't know that she was a Hashin, he probably suspected something along the lines of metahuman. Though Marinette knew that if he truly did have those suspicions, he wouldn't whisper a word. That was probably the reason why she chose him for the Miraculous of Intuition. Luca was a calm person by nature, and would be able to keep his head on straight in stressful situations, and she had no control over what happened in the second chance realities, if her or anyone else's identities were revealed. She had no doubt that Luca would not use the information against anyone, nor would he use his incredibly manipulative ability to harm another person, and simply reverse time until he never got caught. She chose Kagami to wield the Miraculous of Perfection because of her great honor and will to succeed at whatever she does. She had no doubt that when it came down to it, even if the lines seemed to blur, Kagami would always choose right over wrong. She was grateful that she got to become friends with Kagami so that she could see that part of her. They had gotten closer since Chloe had decided to create an Instagram account for both of them, since both of them had numerous medals and competitions under their belt. They were both relatively well known in their community, and apparently, if they wanted to pursue careers and go to the Olympics, as both of their dreams were, the first step was not be good at the sport. No, according to Chloe, step 1 was to gain their attention, there being the big name brands that would back them. Chloe thought that Marinette was the perfect model for an Instagram influencer. Marinette, you got the whole thing going on. You could appeal to not only the gymnastics community and young athletes, but to the blind and, by extension, disabled communities as well. Despite the whole thing going on with your face, you are objectively attractive. I think that's the nicest thing you've ever said about me. Don't get used to it. Now, quiet. I wasn't finished. You have the whole rags to riches or, rags to less dirty rags going on, not to mention all you have under your belts. When was the last time you went to a competition and got anything less than first place overall exactly? You didn't even let me. Quiet, I'm not finished. Basically, you have a massive amount of people you can cater to. Really, we may be able to get some international attention on you, which would mean big brands, which would mean big money. Don't tell me your parents could afford everything that comes with being a professional or even Olympic athlete with bakery money. Marinette certainly hadn't liked the idea of using a disadvantaged community for her own gain, but Chloe had explained to her that it would be a good thing. It wasn't necessarily using them, more like giving them someone to look up to. It wasn't a secret how much Marinette had struggled with gymnastics, and not the actual physical aspect of it. When she decided she wanted to join a competition team, she was more than capable of it. She had all the requirements, was great at everything she did, had tapes of previous routines, had notes from previous instructors about how she was very good at learning new skills, and was quite easy to work with, took corrections well, but none of that mattered. Most would only take one look at her. Wouldn't be possible to join that gym's competition team. Their explanations ranged from not currently accepting new tryouts to issues with insurance, but they knew that was bull. She had to go across the city to the 12th arrondissement before anyone would allow her to try out. Once they did allow her to try out, she had been the best one at the tryouts by far and made their team, though Marinette was under no impression that she was held to the same standard as the other girls. She knew the coaches didn't necessarily discriminate against her because of her blindness or facial disfigurement, but they couldn't allow her to compete if there was even a hint of a chance of her getting injured. If that happened, they would get in serious trouble, because people would say that they let her compete despite the greater risk of injury and end up getting banned from competitions. The coaches' superiors could fire them. There could even be rounds for the company and coaches to be sued. Every skill, every routine, every event had to be perfect if she even wanted a chance to compete. The coaches couldn't accept the risk until there was virtually none at all. Marinette knew the pain of feeling as if there was no chance. It was really only because of her own stubbornness and her parents' insistence that she not quit gymnastics, because of what other people did, that she was still even doing gymnastics today. If she could be the thing that kept other kids from giving up, kids like her that the world had beaten down, kids like her that were told repeatedly that they couldn't do what they loved, then she was on board. Convincing Kagami was an entirely different situation. Kagami didn't mind having an Instagram account at all. She even thought that having one with Marinette would be some fun. It was Kagami's mother who they had to convince. Madame Tsurugi was a very stubborn woman, a reasonable one, but stubborn nonetheless. When Chloe had came over and presented the idea, and her immediate refusal of such a thing, the Tsurugi family was a prestigious one, and a very traditional one as well as very private. The moment the word no left her mouth, it was pretty much a shut case. Kagami would have no such account, but Chloe was not known for giving up so easily. She enlisted the help of Marinette to convince her. Madame Tsurugi had always liked her. She had approved her to be one of Kagami's friends, and had even allowed Kagami and her to have sleepovers. Her and Madame Tsurugi had always had nice conversations, unlike the rest of their friends that Madame Tsurugi had kept at arm's length. It may have been because she was blind as well. Madame Tsurugi was a huge inspiration to her, and she really looked up to her since she had first met Kagami's mother. Madame Tsurugi was 13 when she went blind because of a rare genetic abnormality. Despite her blindness, she became a 3-time Olympic gold champion in women's fencing. She was really the reason that Marinette agreed to her own Instagram account. If she could be that same inspiration to other children like her, like Madame Tsurugi was to herself, then it was more than worth it. To her, if Madame Tsurugi was able to get into the Olympics and win at that, then she could too. Marinette had once asked Madame Tsurugi why she liked her so much. After Madame Tsurugi had insisted that Marinette come over at least once a week for dinner at her estate, she simply told her, "I had a dream like yours when I was your age. The same one, in fact. And every time I made those dreams known, people mocked me. They were always subtle about it. Sweet words, always condescending. I had to learn to fight, to keep those dreams known. I learned to speak with a spark. I learned to act, breathe, and live with that spark. And you, my dear, I hear the same spark in your voice." And maybe it was the spark in her voice that convinced her to allow Kagami to have an Instagram account. Everything posted personally approved by Madame Tsurugi herself, of course. One thing that everyone learned from this was that they should never doubt nor underestimate Chloe, because lo and behold, she was right. Kagami had amassed a following of nearly 1 million people and was being approached by several brand deals, along with tryouts for different schools and camps. And Chloe hadn't been lying about appealing to multiple communities. While Marinette had been relatively well known within Paris and surrounding areas from competitions, she was a nobody outside of that. But somehow, Chloe managed to get her 700,000 followers and climbing within a few months. A few brands had even reached out, and she had gotten several emails about local universities about their summer camp programs for gymnastics. Her gymnastics have only been getting better and better, and that was being recognized by more people than ever. When she just thought about it all, Ladybug, gymnastics, friends, everything that made up her daily life, she couldn't contain the soft smile that graced her face. A lot of her current friends she had either known for the majority of her life or less than 2 years, no in-betweens. Adrien was one of those she had only known for 2 years, but she felt as if they were siblings, or she felt very maternal when it came to him. She didn't know how to phrase it another way. She had always been able to see a person in their entirety, internal organs and all, and it's because of that exact reason that she had seen that Adrien was incredibly malnourished and would have been on the verge of starvation in less than a week. She didn't know what kind of calorie deficient he was in, but she knew he was fairly active, and teenager males need a certain amount in a day, and while she could see the food was digesting in his stomach every time he came into school in the morning, she saw him eat his packaged lunch at school at lunch every day. The kid had been burning every single one of the calories from the amount of exhaustion his body was exhibiting. While she couldn't really fix the situation, as it was clearly originating with Gabriel Agreste, and if she remembered correctly from their few previous interactions, he was a tyrannical asshole that wasn't going to listen to a thing she said. So Marinette just happened to bring extra croissants or other carb-rich breakfast foods every morning, and she just happened to pick up a little too much from the bakery for her lunch and ended up giving him her extra Luxon bagel sandwich, or maybe half of her mother's chicken lo mein that she just couldn't finish but was far too good to waste. While Chloe, despite the rivalry of sorts having ended a long time ago, they were becoming what could be described as friends who made underhanded remarks at each other, not for the purpose of hurting them, but more banter. She was incredibly possessive and protective of Adrien. She hadn't been expecting her to be so encouraging of the idea of him taking the extra food, more expecting her to tell Adrien to throw it out. But she was rather encouraging that he eat it. She knew the Bourgres families were friends of the Agrestes, that Marinette suspected that Chloe may be aware of Adrien's diet, as she was guessing he was on, but in the same position as Marinette, where Gabriel wouldn't listen to a word she said. Another thing that tyrannical asshole Gabriel Agreste did was ban birthday parties, or really, any form of celebration of a person's date of birth. To him it was infantile practice, and the last time Nino tried to convince Gabriel that it was fun, it ended with Nico akumatized and forced people to participate, while all the adults were basically kidnapped. Everyone was trying to avoid the second akumatization of Bubbler. Lucky for them at this point, her, Nino, Alia, Kim, Alex, Max, Luca, and Kagami were professionals at sneaking Adrien away from photo shoots and other various responsibilities that Adrien had no say in participation. And sneaking him out of his fortified mansion of a house was harder than initially anticipated, but with Max's brilliant hacking skills and Alex and Kim's ability to complete absolutely anything if there was a euro to win on the table, they were able to get him out. They spent the night eating on the passion fruit macaroon cocrumbrucci that Marinette's mama and papa made for the occasion on Marinette's rooftop balcony, along with sandwiches and other finger food. Lucas strummed his guitar, playing new melodies that he was developing for Kitty section. Kim and Alex were talking about dares they had planned for the upcoming week, which for a single week, they sure had a lot planned. Everyone else was chatting in their own little conversations. Guys, let's all go rooftop running and see who gets caught first by the cops, Alex exclaimed, cutting everyone off. She sees Kim get visibly excited. Yeah, we totally should. First person to get caught has to sing while standing on the table in the cafeteria tomorrow, Alex added. I'm in, Marinette jeers, everyone else following along. Marinette knew that everyone but Alex and Adrian went rooftop running frequently, and she was pretty sure, if Alex being the one to suggest it meant anything, that she'd probably done it several times before. She'd keep an eye on Adrian, make sure he didn't do anything that would hurt him. Rooftop running was one of those things that doing it wrong could end with a broken ankle, and returning him to Gabriel in such a way would no doubt end with Adrian not leaving his house until he was a legal adult. Worst case scenario, she would subtly heal it, and just have him brush it off as he simply rolled his ankle. Either way, everyone should be safe. Marinette, she heard Kagami say as she got up to brush herself off, are you certain that this is a feasible activity for you to participate in? What do you mean? I don't see why not. She cut herself off. Maybe Ladybug may be able to hop across buildings, but Marinette Dubé Chang is not the same as Ladybug. Marinette had always been cautious when it came to what she could and couldn't do. She knew what everyone said. Even though you're blind, doesn't mean you can't do what other kids do. She heard it since she first went to the vision clinic, when she had first started living with Mom and Papa, and she knew that that was true. To a degree. Because while kids with disabilities could do a lot of things people really did think they couldn't, they had their limits. Especially a fucking blind girl. Marinette can do it, trust me. She's a badass. Her eyes may not work, but she uses echolocation thingy. She's more aware of her surroundings than I am anyway. Marinette, while grateful for Kim's intervention, was looking at him with a confused expression. Kim, echolocation? What? Could you repeat that? You use the tongue clicky thing to find out how far away you are from things, Kim says with a complete confidence, clicking his tongue to demonstrate. Kim, Marinette sighs and hides her eyes behind her hand as if disappointed. Please tell me that in the over 10 years that we've been best friends, you have not thought that I could use echolocation like I'm a fucking bat to get around. She sees him pause and glance at everyone else, everyone looking at him with a look of bafflement and disbelief. Oh my god, Kim, Marinette groaned. What? You do that clicky thing with your mouth all the time. That was a nervous tic I had as a kid. I stopped doing that years ago. Oh, everyone else remained completely silent and still, before bursting out laughing. You really thought I could use echolocation? Can humans even do that? Marinette asked between bouts of laughter. Kim wasn't exactly far off from the truth. Well, I mean, you always know what's going on. You're more aware of things than I am, he said, laughing along with them. I'm just generally aware of things, like a normal human being. The only reason you're still alive is because of your thick skull. Another round of laughter, and Kim playfully rolling his eyes at all of them. Okay, enough. Let's get a move on before Tom and Sabine sense that we're about to do something that is technically illegal, and they scold the lot of us, Kim expressed, smiling and climbing around the chimney towards the rest of the roof. Everyone followed him, still chuckling under their breath. Days like this, where she could just laugh surrounded by all her friends, were few and far between with how busy they all were with their personal lives. She wouldn't exchange this for the world. Bonus. I can't find it. I can't believe I lost it. My mom is going to kill me. It's okay. Don't panic, Ivan. We'll find the brooch. It's gotta be here somewhere. Alia answered, rifling through the chest full of set costumes. They were putting on a production based around a murder mystery plot. The big mystery of the story was all solved because of Mr. Alberito, the murderer, was wearing a rose brooch that mirrored the rose drawing the victim had drawn on the wall before their death. They had wanted something authentic for the brooch, since it was the center of the movie, and Ivan's mother had a rose brooch that she inherited from her great-grandmother. It was incredibly important to her, but she allowed Ivan to use it on the condition that he took good care of it, and she received it in the same condition she gave it in. They were even going to be able to use a historic townhouse in the 6th arrondissement as their set. Today they were still running through their costume rehearsal at the school, and the brooch had been lost. Ivan was panicking for his life, and everyone was searching for it. I swear, Ivan, I handed it right back to you before I moved to take off the blazer, Malene said as she was moving around the dummy props they were using for the costume rehearsal. Yeah, I remember that. You came up to me, took the pin off, and I set it down right here. He tapped a side table that was completely empty, and went to pick up the sound equipment for tomorrow. When I came back, it was gone. Under the bookcase, against the wall, behind the front right leg. Everyone just turned to where Marinette was sitting on the wooden stool in the back of the classroom. What? She heard Julika ask. Marinette kept a blank face. I said, under the bookcase, against the wall, behind the front right leg, she said evenly, keeping her face completely even. She saw everyone freeze, stand completely still, eyes darting between themselves as they all watched as Kim slowly edged towards the bookcase against the wall, drop down to his stomach, and stick his arm behind the front right leg and feel around. Everybody watched him as he turned around with a shocked expression, raising his hand to show the rose brooch in his palm. Marinette saw as everyone else's jaw dropped and slowly turned to look at her, a tiny smirk forming across her face. Tiki said there is always a balance, even within ourselves. So what if she was just a bit chaotic?